Let's start the Gemara over here in Masechta Beya. We're up to 14b, and we're up to the Mishnah. Let's start from the Mishnah. Zog the Mishnah, this is an issue of sending on Yom Tov gifts to your buddy. What kind of a gifts are you allowed to send? You're only allowed to send gifts according to Beis Shammai that they can use on Yom Tov. If you give them a gift and they can use it on Yom Tov, then you can send it. But just to send a gift and they're going to use it after Yom Tov, don't send it. So he says like this. Beis Shammai Emrim. So Beis Shammai say, Ein mishalchin b'Yom Tov. That on Yom Tov we don't send gifts. And Rashi says, Ein mishalchin. Rashi says, doiron, ish l're'eu. Doiron means a gift. Elo mones. What you could send is pieces, meaning portions, something which is a portion. And Rashi explains, a portion that is ready for the person to eat, you can send it that. Elo mones, Rashi, dover hamuchon, something which is prepared. Ve'ene osui la'anichai lemocher. And it's not you meant to leave it for the next day. And Rashi gives an example, kigoin chatiches bosor chatuches lifnei ha'orchim, to give cut pieces of meat before the guest. So you have guests in your house, you're sending them a gift, right? Are we going to say you're not allowed to feed them because you're not allowed to give a gift on Yom Tov? Yes. Food, cut meat. Rashi gives also v'chein dogim, also fish. Not sure the vegetarians are not going to like this Rashi too much. So you have both flesh and fish, the meat and fish. You can give that because that's meant for eating now. But just to send gifts, you're not allowed to. Beis Hillel disagrees. That's the opinion of Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel say, Mishalchin behema chaya v'oif. You can even send the animal. It's not even shechted yet, or a chaya, non-domesticated animal, or a bird. Bein chayin, bein shchotir. Whether they're alive or they're shechted, you can still send them. And we'll see in the Gemara. The Gemara will explain. Same thing is, he says that mishalchin yenos shmonim v'selosos v'kitnios. You can send wine, you can send oil, you can send fine flour, and you can send legumes. These are all ready to drink, to use. But avaloi tvua, but grain that still needs to be processed, you have to grind it, and that's not allowed on Yom Tov because you should have ground it yesterday, as we learned earlier. So that you're not allowed to send avaloi tvua, but not grains. Rashi she'enoi reuya hayoim. That is not fit for today. She'ein toichanim b'Yom Tov. We don't grind on Yom Tov. Shehoya loy litchain me'esmel. He should have grinded from the day before b'loy tofik timer, and the taste wouldn't go away. Rashi is hinting to what the Gemara said before, and the Gemara made a distinction before. So in that case, why are we allowed to do anything on Yom Tov? Why don't we say do it before? So Rashi says, well, other things like spices and certainly the food itself, it's not going to taste as well if you leave it over from yesterday. Fresh food or fresh Pavlin is much better. But the wheat, to grind it up, to get the flour, doesn't really make a difference. So you should have done it yesterday. So we don't allow you to do that. So anything that we send has to have a possibility of being used on Yom Tov. But since Tvua cannot be on Yom Tov, then used on Yom Tov, then you're not allowed to send it. And the Mishnah brings down Rabbi Shimon Matir B'Tvua. Rabbi Shimon disagrees. He says, yes, you could do Tvua. Why? Because grain is usually, you grind it and you make flour and you bake it. But sometimes people take the grain and they cook it. And they make like a kasha from the grain, thing like that. So you can't prohibit it. He says, B'Tvua, it's okay. Rashi says, Rabbi Shimon Mati B'Tvua, because he says, Shemo Yivashlim B'Gedera, he might cook it in a pot. You're not allowed to grind. But he says, you could use a small machteshes. So I guess Rashi is saying either or. Either you could cook them in the pot as is, or you can grind it in a small grinder, as we learned before, that machteshes tana is okay. So therefore, Reb Shimon says that it's okay. Okay, that's the Mishnah, and now we'll do the Gemara. Zog the Gemara, even though we allowed you to send gifts to the other person, but Tana Rabbi Chil ubilvad shelo yasena b'shura. You shouldn't do it in a line. You have people lined up. You're sending gifts to your friend. If you have people lined up, giving the people gifts to the friend, it doesn't look any more like a gift. It looks like you're doing some business. You have a people lined up bringing stuff to other people. Rashi says, "Shelo yasenu b'shura, lo yishlach hadoiron al yidei anoshim harba." Don't send this gift through multiple people. The avshamilsa, because that's a very public. This matter becomes very publicized. It appears like they're leading it to sell it in the marketplace. You have all these people carrying they're really carrying it as a gift, so we don't do it in a public way. So Gemara says, Tana, how much is the amount of people that you can't send it about? So he says, Ein shura pchusa mishloish b'nei adam. A line is no less than 3 people. 3 people is a line. So if you're going to send it with 2 people, that's not called a line. That's okay. If you have 3 people, then it's no good. You can't split the gift and give it to 3 different people, because that's public. 3 people is public. Now, the Gemara wants to know what happens. Okay, if you're sending him, your friend, let's say you're sending him fish, and you're sending some of the fish with one person, some of the fish with the other person, and some with the third person. So you're sending 3 people with the same fish. So we're saying it looks like you're selling the fish because you're selling it and saying the same people. You can't do that. But the question becomes, what if I gonna sell one person, I'm sending fish, the other person I'm sending flesh, and with the other person I'm sending dessert. So each one is carrying something else. Is that also not allowed because it's public? Boy Rabashi. So this is the question that Rabashi presents over here. So Rabashi wants to know, if you have Tloso Gavri, you have 3 people Tlosa Gabri, Shluchim in Tlosimini. They were sent with three different kinds, with Tlosimini, and three kinds. The question is, Mike, what's the halacha? What's the question? Rashi explains. What's the mai? What's the question here? Do we follow every kind? Vishori is permissible. Because we go by the kind. This is only one person is taking one kind. And Kehechi, the Yochel Shloach, Ish Echod im Kol Min Zebeloize. Just like you're able to send one person with every kind, one without the other, yeah. Hashtaramishori. So now, in other words, these kinds are not inherently connected. You could send it with you can send one person with one kind. In other words, you send one person with one kind, and the other person with another kind, and another person with another kind. And therefore, if you have three people, each kind can have one person if you send them separately, because they're just everybody's carrying one thing. But so do we say, so now they're going together, but this is one, and that's another kind, so they're divided because they're different kinds, so that's okay. Or perhaps so maybe, but now the fact is it's a public statement here because people are seeing things are going from this house to the other house. Yes, it's different kinds, but it's still too public, and we shouldn't do that on Yontiv. And the Gemara says Teku remains unresolved. Okay. So now the Gemara goes to explain, we learned in the Mishnah that you can't send grain, because grain is meant to grind, you can't grind Yontiv, but Rabbi Shimon disagreed. It says Rabbi Shimon matir b'tvua. He did allow by tvua to send it. What are you going to use it for? Why could you send it? So the Gemara Tanya, we learned in Abraisa. Rabbi Shimon matir b'tvua. Rabbi Shimon permits with grain, because what's his logic? It says, Kigoin chitin lasis mehem ludius. It's a kind, Rashi says ludius, from the grain, from the wheat, you make ludius, that's a food made out of wheat. So that's, you can make it's not baking it, you're not grinding it, you're just making a food out of it. Soirim, litin lefei behemte. If we're talking about barley, the animal, he doesn't need to grind it, he can give him to eat. And then adashim, and if we're talking about lentils, lasis mem risisim. He could make risisim, and Rashi says risisim. It's a Michael Osim in adashim. That's a food that is made from the adashim. So basically, Reb Shimon says there's something to do. The Chachamim apparently holds that that's not the usual thing that you use the chitim for, and that's not the usual use what you use the adashim. So therefore, they prohibit they only allow the legumes or the once it's done, but not grain, any grain, because that's not the usual way. But Rabbi Shimon is more Michael. Okay, we'll do the next Mishnah. That was quick. Again, just like by food, it has to be something that can be eaten on the Yontif. We don't want you just sending stuff for after Yontif. On Yontif, you're not a lot of trouble for after Yontif. But what about clothing? What about you want to send a friend If it's something they can wear on Yontiv, they can have benefit use on Yontiv, then you can send it to them. But if not, let's look at the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Mishalchim Kelim, that you could send garments, Mishalchim Kelim, which is Begodim, Bein Tfurim, Bein She'enam Tfurim, whether they're sewn up or they're not sewn up. And the Gemara is going to explain if they're not sewn up, so what are they used for? But we'll see. The Gemara is going to take it apart and explain each case. And here, the Gemara the Mishnah brings a chiddush. Even if you're sending him a garment that has kilayim, and technically because it has kilayim, he won't be able to wear it. But if he needs it for the yontif, it's okay. But what do you mean need it for the yontif? How are you going to wear yontif? We'll have to wait for the Gemara. The Gemara is going to explain. He uses it not in the way of a garment, so it's not a prohibition of shatnez, of kilayim. So he says, even it has kilayim, the mixture of wool and linen. But as long as if you need it for the yontif, it's okay to send it. How could you use on yontif something which has kilayim? Zokt Rashi, the Gemara will explain what is the use for it. Okay. Avoloi sandal hamesumar. Not a sandal is a kind of a shoe, and it has nails to hold it together. So what's the story? Zokt Rashi, why can't you send that shoe? So Rashi said, first of all, Rashi explained what is sandal. Shel eitz mitzupa oir. It's made out of wood, and it is overlaid with skin. Umasmares kavuim boy. There are nails set in that shoe, in that sandal. I guess the leather is sticking to the wooden shoe through the masmer, to the nails. So why can't you send it? Shegozru chachamim olov sheloi linaloi b'Shabbos u'b'Yom Tov. The chachamim made a decree not to use those shoes on Shabbos and Yom Tov. And Mishumaisa Shehoyu, it was a story that happened. Shenergu harugim b'Shabbos al yodi. People were killed because of these sandals. They were hiding over there. The Gemara tells the whole story of it. They were hiding, and they went out with the shoes, and they tripped over each other, and there were people killed. So the Chachamim said they don't want people to wear that on Shabbos. So you can't. It's moktzah, so there's no use for it. So you're not allowed to send it on Shabbos, on Yontif. And also v'loy minal she'enei tofel. A shoe that is not sewn. I guess the shoe is the bottom part. It's not useful for anything. Rashi says it's not sewn, so it's useless. V'loy she'enei tofel. So Rashi v'loy chozi lemidi. It's not worth for anything. Rabbi Yehuda says, Af loy min al lovan. Also not a white shoe. The shoe has to be dyed, to be painted. It has to, you make it black, or your lovan means before you colored the shoe. People don't wear that. Af loy min al lovan, that you can't send that either. Zaktrashi shelo hoyo darkoi lenoloi. It wasn't the custom to use that shoes. That requires a craftsman, so to blacken it, to make it To paint it black, you need a professional. So therefore, we're not going to say that you're not allowed to do that. And Rashi said, the Gemara Mishnah concludes, Zakla, this is the rule. Kol she'na'osim b'yontif. Anything that you adorn yourself on Yontif. Na'osim miskashtim, mishalchan osim, you can send it. We need you to use it on Yontif, that you should be able to use it on Yontif. That's the Mishnah, now we'll do the Gemara. The Mishnah says, sewn on unsewn, as well as kilayim. Friday Gemara like this. The Gemara asks, we understand if they're sewn, you want to send sewn shoes, they are fit to be worn. He can wear the shoes, so that's okay. That I understand. And even she'ein tefurim, if you have material which has not been sewn, they're also fit to cover up. Can use a garment to cover yourself with it. And Elo kilayim my chazi, but the Gemara asks, kilayim, what is that going to be used for? What are you using the kilayim? It's useless. Why are you allowed to send kilayim? The Mishnah said you can send sewn, not sewn, and also kilayim. So the Gemara asks, kilayim my chazi, what is it worth? What is it fit for? What are you going to use it for? And the Gemara says, and if you're going to say chazi limimach tusei, that it's fit to fold it up underneath you. If you want to sit like a cushion to sit on it, the Torah technically has prohibited wearing a garment made out of kilayim. But to sit on a folded up kilayim, there's no prohibition. So maybe he's sending him a kilayim, but he'll use it to sit on it on Yom Tov. But the Gemara brings that it is also prohibited to sit on a kilayim midrabanan. The Gemara, but we learned in a Beitza. The pasuk says lo yalo alecha, that the shatnez should not go on you. Avol ato yochel la'atzia tachtecha. The Torah doesn't allow it to go on top of you as a garment, but you can go ahead and spread it out underneath you. So that's from the Torah. But the Chachamim say, Osur Lasses Kain is not allowed to do so, to sit on the kilayim. Why? It may wrap one thread on your flesh. You're going to be sitting on a piece of material which has kilayim. A little strand of that kilayim may touch your flesh, and it'll warm your flesh, so you'll benefit. That's halacha. So therefore, don't even sit on it. Let's do Rashi is another pshat. Let's do in the Rashi. Shemo tichrech loy nema. Zokt Rashi, a thread. What is the thread gonna do? Rashi says no. V'yesh nimim gedolim begasim. There are large and thick strands. K'moy shel dal the lupkorin, shekorin kut, of the glukorin that they call kut, umechamemes b'mekoyma, and that will warm him up in where it is. And he'll be violating not to wear shatnez because he's using now, even though he's sitting on it, but that thing is covering him. Here we're talking about Nima means a small. This first pshat in Rashi means a big nima that can really cover him and warm him up. But yesh inami, there's another interpretation, nima ba'alma. We're just talking a thread, a small thread. So what does it mean, a small thread? But how is he going to benefit him? How? So Rashi, kivon the ikra beged mehanoi umechame milmat. Since the main garment is benefiting him, it's warming him from the bottom. Havilo holivisho the isbano. So that's called dressing that he is benefiting, and therefore that's going to be prohibited as well. Even though he's only being touched by one strand, but the whole garment is one, and he's benefiting from the garment. So that strand becomes part of that whole garment because the main garment is warming it. So that's considered, even though it's just a small strand, a levisha that he has a noah. And that's what the Chum said not to do. Okay, so the bottom line is, why is he allowed to send his friend this kilayim when the Chachamim said that you can't even sit on the kilayim? Not to wear it, but not even sit it. So v'chitema, and if you're going to argue, the mafsik midi bini bini, that there's something interruption in between, which means you're worried about a strand, so you have the kilayim on the bottom, and you put over another spread over on the top of that. So now there's not going to be any strand coming to you. But that also is not going to work. Omar Rabbi Yeshua ben Pazi, Omar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Omar Rabbi Yosi ben Shaul, Omar Rabbi. See how many Omars are here? Mishum Kola Kadisha Yerushalayim, in the name of the holy community of Jerusalem. What did he say? Afilu eser matzah zu al gavzu b'kilayim tachteim. Even if you should have 10 spreads, one on top of the other, and the very bottom one is kilayim. Asur lishon aleim. It's prohibited to sleep on them. According to the Rabbanon. Also the Rabbanon. Hello. Oh. He doesn't give, Rashi doesn't explain the reason, but he probably a gezerah. If you start sleeping on kilayim, then you might go to the top, and then you're gonna cover yourself with that also. Okay. So the Gemara says, okay, maybe he's sending him the kilayim elo bevilim. He's selling him it with a drape. Rashi says, it's fit. He can drape it in front of the door. He doesn't have to wear it. He's going to drape it. And therefore, he's going to use the material from the kilayim. So the Gemara said that doesn't work either. Because V'omar Ula, but didn't Ula say, Mipnei ma omru v'loin tomei? Why did the Chachamim say that a drape is tomei? And the drape, if you have a tumah in the house, the drape will become tomei. Why isn't it considered to be like part of the other walls? It's a wall because it stays in together with the walls. So the answer is mipnei shashamesh mischamim kenegdei. Hashamesh, the one who serves, he warms up. He drapes. He takes the drape when it's cold and he wraps it around himself. So it's not considered just like a regular wall, but it's considered like a movable, which will become tummy. But here you see that the shaman drapes himself. So how could you send it to him on Yontif? You're not allowed to use it on Yontif. Rashi, what does it mean, Sultan? That we're saying that Mekabel Tuma, that he does receive Tuma, so ki echod memelchitzes habayis, and you didn't make him like one of the other walls of the house. Eino Mekabel Tumas, they don't get Tuma, and the reason is mipnei shal shamish beschamen kenegdoi. The shamish warms up opposite it, which means misatik b'shulov. He wraps himself around at the bottom. Lefikoch yesh toidas kli olo. That's why it has the halacha of a keli. Okay, and that's why it's tome. But Dr. Rashi v'kiv on the mischamim kenegdoi also lasoisis kilayim. Since you warm up kenegdoi, then you're not allowed to make it kilayim. So again, why are you sending your friend kilayim? What is he going to use it for? Tzitzis. And the Gemara answers, Elo, we'll have to say, bekashim. We're talking about hard. They're not soft. They're not meant to let on, to sit, to lay on, to sift on, to sit on. It's talking koshim. Zokt Rashi, bekoshim. Begodim, koshim. These are hard garments. She'ein mischamimim, they don't, she'ein mechamim, they don't warm. Mutar leishav aleim, then you're allowed to sit on top of them. Maybe
he's using it for tzitzi.
But this is not even tzitzi. I mean, I don't think you can put it. You're not a garment that you wear. So he says, Elo b'kosher. That's his answer, b'kosher. The Gemara says, V'chiho, b'godm kosher she'em mechamim mut leishalem. If it's hard ones, they don't heat. It's not like something to warm up. Then you're allowed to. This goes along with what Rav Huna b'nei B'shua says. Hai namto, gamdo. Namto is a garment, a hard garment. Namto beged shekodim paltra belaz. Gamdo, kosher. That means a hard garment. K'moi gemoid misani. Squeeze the shoe, and Rashi says dover shoe kovitz nasa kosher. If you squeeze something, it becomes hard because it's gathered in. It's of the narish of the place. Hai namto, this garment, hard garment of nourish, the place, the mamoker of that place. Narish is that place. Sharia, that's permissible to sit on them because they don't heat up, and that's why that would be okay. So that's the reason you can send kilayim, but it has to be this kind of kilayim. It has to be specifically that it should be hard and it doesn't warm. Okay. So the Gemara weiter, Omar Papa says Papa that ardelin. Zokt Rashi, Roisi, what's ardelin? Roisi b'tshuvas hagoinim. I saw in the response to hagoinim, sherigilim lelovshom tachas man aleim. They wear them underneath their shoes. V'toilim aleihem oil shel tiyoshim mu'ubodim, and you put on them the skin of goats that have been through the tannery, tachas karki isom, under their floor. It's basically something like an arch today that you put into your shoe. So they would put in something like that, a leather וכנגד העקב של רגל יש עושים של צמר. And under the heel, I guess for the heel spurs, they make it out of wool and they call it namti. So that's the ardelayim. I guess that's a hard one that doesn't count. Ein b'hem mishum kilayim. Why is there no kilayim? The question is because they're hard. Amar Rava says, Rava, Hani Serori Dipshiti. Those bundles of money, that's a wallet. Ein bohem mishum kilayim. There's no kilayim over there. I guess if you hold in your pocket the wallet that has kilayim, you're not warming up by it. If it's the bar zreni, it's a bundle that holds seed. Shetzoyer behem the bar zreni. Shetzoyer behem zroim. Yesh behem mishum kilayim. And there is kilayim, and also litaim b'toich chayka. I guess whether it's hard or not hard, you're talking about to put it in a bundle in your pocket. The question is, does it warm you up or not? Rabashi Omar, echod zeh ve'echod zeh, ein b'hem mishum kilayim. This is not kilayim. That's not the way to warm yourself up. By keeping your wallet in your pockets to warm you up, that's not the way to warm up, and therefore it doesn't apply over here the laws of kilayim. Avali sandal hamesumar, not this sandal which was with the nails. For the Gemara, sandal hamesumar my time aloi. What's the reason you can do it? And the Gemara says because what happened? Masechta Shabbos b'Perek b'Amirei Isha Yoitza Dav Samach Amud Aleph. So over there, like I said, they got panicked and they were running over each other. It was like a tramp. They would trample people. So therefore, they said not to wear that anymore. Amar Abaye. So Abaye says, sandal hamesumar asul l'nale. Well, you're not allowed to wear it, but a mutar l'tautla, you can move, you still move it. Also, l'nale, why can't you tie your shoe, wear it? Might show you because the story. Mutar l'tautla, but you can still move it. How do we know you can move it? Because it says ein mishalchim, you can't send it. The isal kadaitach osur l'taltaloi. If you think that you're not allowed to use it, hashtul l'taltuli also. If you're not allowed to move it, mishalchim b'boy, we need to tell you that you're not allowed to send it. So the fact that the Mishnah writes that you can't send this sandal hamesumar, it means that moving, you're allowed to move it, but you're just not allowed to send it, because if you were not allowed to move it, why do we have to tell you you can't send it? You can't even move it. So therefore, he says that you could move it, but you're not allowed to wear it. Okay, today I have to finish over here. The timing is not yet, so doesn't work out so well with the Mincha Ma'ariv. But in Mitzvah Shem, we'll the next few weeks, we'll learn a quarter to 7, like today. And we'll finish a little bit later as the day. We're going to daven Milcha now, so we'll call it a day. And I'll see everybody next week in Mitzvah Shem.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Thank you. Thank you for joining.